The Ohio State Buckeyes entered the college football playoff with kind of a little bit of a disappointing feeling. However, they are in the playoff, and it's time to take a look at how they're going to beat Tennessee in this first 12-team college football playoff. Now, the Ohio State Buckeyes had some disappointing losses this year. The Michigan loss obviously was very disappointing, and there's definitely a ton of pressure on Ryan Day in this game. And it's going to be interesting to see how they handle expectations. But also, this is a team that's definitely capable of making a run in this playoff. Yes, it's disappointing to lose to a team like Michigan in your final game of the season, but this is still an Ohio State team that has shown this year that they can be a problem for pretty much anybody. So it's not like this team is hopeless. Yeah, it's a disappointing loss, and there's obviously a ton of pressure, like I said, on Ryan Day, but this is a team that has done some serious damage to certain teams. When you look at some of the results that they've produced, some of that's going against bad competition, but you saw what they did to Indiana. You saw them handle their business against Penn State. They lost by 1 to Oregon. You saw them, destroy Iowa. They have made some statements, so it's not like this team is hopeless. But facing a team like Tennessee obviously is going to present its challenges, and Ohio State is going to have their hands full. That being said, they are a 7.5-point favorite as I'm recording this, and there's plenty to be excited about if you're an Ohio State fan. We'll dive into the keys to the game here. The first one is going to be balance the offense. Will Howard plays a huge role in that, and so far we've seen him do a pretty good job of making that happen. You have guys like Travion Henderson and Quinshon Judkins. You can run the football, but offensive line injuries have made things a little bit more difficult. Will Howard does play a role in getting that to balance out the offense, to make the passing attack relevant, and this is going to be a Tennessee defense that is going to have to make them earn it, and this is a Tennessee defense that can be disruptive at times, so you're going to have to find ways to move the ball down the field. Will Howard is going to play, obviously, a big role in that, and I'm excited to see what Chip Kelly has dialed up for this team. Howard has 2,800 yards, 27 touchdowns. One of his favorite targets, Jeremiah Smith, who's a freshman. I'm very excited to see what he does in such a big moment under the brightest of spotlights. Doing it at home, the one thing I can say for sure, this atmosphere is going to be electric. It's going to be insane. The first ever 12-team college football playoff, with the first round being at the, at campus, on campus, at college stadiums. The atmosphere is going to be incredible, unlike anything we've ever seen. And Ohio State, Columbus is going to be really, really a fun atmosphere for sure. And the second key going to be have to get after Nico. Nico Iamaleava is the biggest X factor for Tennessee. I talked about that in breaking down how Tennessee beats Ohio State. For Ohio State to beat Tennessee, you have to get after Nico. You have to make him uncomfortable, and you have to put him in uncomfortable situations where maybe he makes a young mistake. He's a very young player still that is learning the position. He is learning what it takes to be a quarterback at this level. You don't give him any time to figure that out. You get after him from the minute the game starts, and Ohio State has proven that they can do that. They have 35 sacks on the year. Tennessee has allowed 26 sacks, which isn't bad, but they are not an elite pass blocking group by any means. Some of that has to do with Nico. Some of it has to do with the offensive line. And Ohio State's defensive line, we know they can get after it. We know that they're capable of making life miserable for the opposing quarterback, and that's going to be really entertaining to watch. The other one kind of going along with it is stop the run. Tennessee is averaging 232 yards per game on the ground. That's 9th in college football. Dylan Sampson is an electric ball carrier. You have to find ways to slow him down, and then that in turn puts pressure on Nico to beat you with his arm. That in turn means that Tennessee has to go to the air. And at times we've seen them be successful, but also at times you've definitely seen them struggle to move the ball through the air because Nico either is overthinking things or he's struggling to feel comfortable in the pocket. He's not in rhythm. If there's a defense that can get after that offense, it's Ohio State. They have the players necessary to do that, and they're going to be really tough to block. And that leads us kind of into the players to watch. And the players to watch we'll go over both sides here. We'll start with Ohio State, obviously. Travion Henderson, Quinshon Judkins. We talked about them. The fact that they got Quinshon Judkins in the transfer portal still kind of blows my mind. I'm very surprised that with Travion Henderson coming back that they were able to convince Judkins to come here, but also it's been a really good addition for this team. Over 1,500 yards between the two, 14 touchdowns. They have been really fun to watch as a 10. And we talked about Will Howard to over 2,800 yards, 27 touchdowns through the air. A very accurate quarterback who's made some really big time throws, and he's going to be really fun to watch. I think with what you had coming into this year, Will Howard is a really good quarterback to have. The toughness, the playmaking abilities, I think that's something that's going to really help Ohio State when you need him the most. We talked about Jeremiah Smith. Again, what does Jeremiah Smith do in such a big spotlight? Is he able to take his game to another level, or is he going to shrink kind of like Nico, where you're going to have some young moments? Is Jeremiah Smith going to have those, or are we going to see a superstar take over when Ohio State needs him the most? He's doing it in front of his home crowd. That's going to be really fun to see how he handles that type of expectations and see what he can do with that opportunity. We talked about the defensive line and their role in this game. The starters for this line have been really fun to watch. JT Tuimoloau, Jack Sawyer, Tyleik Williams, Ty Hamilton. You look at all these guys that they have on this defensive line. That's a group that is going to dictate they're going to set the tone. They're going to dictate how this game plays out, because if they're able to get after this offense, an offense that, again, Ohio State has not seen this type of offense. They have not seen offense of this caliber. They have not been able to face something like this. The fact that Tennessee spreads things out so far and you have to rely on your athleticism at times, that puts a lot of pressure on a defense. That's where this defensive line comes in. If they're able to dictate the line of scrimmage and dominate in the trenches, you feel less concerned about what's going on elsewhere. Caleb Downs is going to have his hands full, but I'm excited to see what he does. This is not going to be new for him. Caleb Downs has faced this offense and when he was at Alabama, and that's a huge set of experience that you're going to lean on, especially in preparation leading up to this game. It's going to be really fun to see how he plays, what Ohio State asks him to do. Jim Knowles has done a lot of different things with Caleb Downs, from his alignment to his responsibilities. I'm excited to see what they ask him to do against Tennessee. Now, the players to watch for Tennessee, this is who you need to pay attention to if you're an Ohio State fan. Dylan Sampson is the stud for this offense. He has been the biggest reason why Tennessee has had success and has been the steadying force. Leads us back to our keys to the game. Stopping the run, stopping Dylan Sampson, he is going to be the biggest reason that Ohio State has success or struggles, because if Tennessee runs the ball efficiently, that's opening things up for that really spread out offense to make some big time plays. You also talked about, we talked about Nico. What he does against Ohio State's defense maybe dictates the outcome of this game. Maybe it shows us exactly what we should expect from Ohio State. It shows us who's going to set the tone early. And a guy like Dante Thornton could be a dangerous player. Now, Ohio State has some really good corners. We've seen them struggle at times, but we've also seen them do some really good things. And the Oregon game is probably the one that everybody's pointing to right now. And Dante Thornton, funny enough, a former Oregon player, he is someone that could be a problem for Ohio State. I'm very curious how they defend him. That kind of speed, he's averaging almost 26 yards per catch. He is someone that could be a massive problem for Ohio State if they're not careful. Flipping to the other side, Arian Carter is a very slept-on linebacker. I know that he's going to have his hands full trying to stop this rushing attack and battling in the trenches. James Pierce Jr. is someone who, if you're an Ohio State fan, losing Josh Simmons obviously hurt. But this is a team that could provide a big-time challenge for the Buckeyes. Guys like James Pierce can get after the quarterback, and that could be a problem. What your offense is able to do might hinge on what your offensive line can do for your offense. And there have been some injuries, and that's not like a knock on Ohio State by any means, but if you're struggling with, you're on your third string left tackle, or you're moving your guard to tackle, that could provide some problems. So James Pierce Jr. is someone to keep an eye on if you're Ohio State, and how he performs early might dictate how either long of a night or how successful a night you're going to have against this team, or a game against this team. So it's going to be interesting for sure. Tennessee has plenty of playmakers to, I wouldn't say worry about, but definitely plenty of playmakers to keep an eye on. Ohio State definitely has what it takes. Again, yes, the Michigan game is very disappointing, but the nice part about the playoff is you get to wash all of that. Those games don't matter. You're in the playoff. You have everything ahead of you. You just wash that one out. You learn from it and you move on. This is a game that Ohio State can definitely win. There is no question about that. They're 7.5-point favorites. They're playing at home. They have the playmakers. Move on from whatever disappointments you might have and find a way to beat Tennessee.